Hello, everyone. Well, it's been about 2 weeks since we got our Tesla Model 3, and I want to emphasize that Natsumi and I are absolutely delighted with the car. It's a wonderful car. You should run out and go and buy one. But paradoxically, the excellence of the car really highlights little rough edges in the interface and design that I want to address in this video. So without further ado, this is my Tesla Bitch List. Now, the first thing you'll notice is, but even though we're in the garage, our Tesla isn't plugged in, and there's a very good reason for that. You see, we have solar panels, which means in North Carolina, we're on what's called a time of use demand billing plan. That means our electricity is more expensive during peak hours and less expensive during off-peak hours. And in addition, we get charged for the maximum demand we place on the electrical grid every month. Well, that means that it's vitally important for a power-hungry appliance like a Tesla that it only charge during off-peak hours. And bluntly, Tesla's support for this is at best rudimentary. All you can do in a Tesla is tell it, start charging at a certain time, say 9:30 p.m. And then it will continue to charge until it gets whatever it needs. This is a problem because what you really want to do is tell the Tesla, only charge during these off-peak hours. Do not suck electrons at any other time. And you can't do that. So if it needs to go past overnight and into the morning to charge, you go into peak time. And there's an even bigger problem. Even if you've told the Tesla, don't charge until 9:30 p.m., if it is connected and you get in the car, and the Tesla decides it needs a little electricity, say, to run the air conditioning while you're just sitting here in the garage, it will start drawing power through the connector. I've seen draws of up to 10 amps when I've specifically told the car, don't charge until 9:30 p.m. I guess it's kind of rules lawyering and saying, well, I'm not really charging so I can take electricity. But the blunt fact of the matter is, that can cause an extra $10 or $15 in peak charge if it happens at exactly the wrong time. It's just a clunky design and Tesla needs to fix it. Our Chevy Volt, which we've had since 2011, has since day one had the ability to know when the peak and off-peak hours are, to only charge during the off-peak, and it even knows the difference between summer and winter rates. Tesla can do better. And I hope they'll fix this as soon as possible. Now let's get in the car and start having some fun. Now, one thing I really like about the Tesla happens right when you get into the car. It has driver preferences, and as soon as you touch the brake pedal, it's going to adjust the seats and the mirrors and everything to fit your preferences. Oh, no. Oh, damn it! Ah! Stop, Tesla! Stop! Okay, that was a little exaggerated, but what happened there was the last person to use the car was my wife, who is smaller than I am. And the car has no way of telling who the driver is. Okay, so it applied the preferences for the last driver. Okay, and this is what I call Star Wars Detention Center garbage masher mode. Because about every other day, I forget to immediately set my preferences and I get mashed, and then I have to quickly try and stop it. It's unfortunate because the car has a lot of ways to figure out who the driver is, starting with the fact that the key is your phone. So whoever's key
opened the car is likely to be the driver. It also has like sensors in the seat. It can tell how much you weigh. And if there's one thing that's for sure, I weigh more than she does. Okay? It can tell, probably tell what phone is down on the charging mat. There's all sorts of heuristics I can think of that they could do. Okay? And if you just could associate a key or a phone with a driver profile, then you would be able to really make the entry to the car, your first experience with the car every day, so much nicer. There's another aspect of it. If you look really carefully here, you'll see that currently the media player is connected to my wife's iPhone. And the reason for that is, again, she was the last person to use the car. And so her phone was the last phone that it connected to. And as it happens, the place where she tends to put her phone when she goes into the house is just within Bluetooth range. So it stays connected. So even though my phone, this phone, was pretty much the one that opened the car, and it's the one that's closest to the car, because it doesn't know that I'm the driver, I have to manually connect the phone, or I have to wait until I drive away from the house and it loses the Bluetooth connection. Again, if the car knew who the driver was, it could be a lot nicer about this. Now, my final phone-related bitch is just a very simple one. It's so easy to leave your phone in this car. You generally put it in the central panel right here, okay? And since the car shuts off automatically and you're supposed to just like walk away from it, every other day I'm walking away from the car and leaving my phone in the car, and I get about 20 feet and I realize, because the car didn't beep at me that it locked, that the phone is still in the car and I have to come back and get it, okay? If it just did something simple like, when the car is parked and I take off my safety belt, a little graphic came up on the screen, say, "Hey moron, don't forget your phone." Problem solved. That would be really nice, a tiny little convenience feature that would be just absolutely wonderful. Anyway, enough about bitching about the phones. Now let's go out and bitch about driving. Okay, so we're cruising along in Autopilot, which is both keeping me in lane and is also keeping track of the other cars in the road and matching my speed. That's the adaptive cruise control. I actually usually drive just with the adaptive cruise control, but I have noticed that it has a couple of interesting behaviors that I think could be slightly improved. The first is that occasionally it gets a little bit confused, in particular when you're going around a corner and some oncoming traffic comes around that corner and the car suddenly sees it. It will decide that that is a potential hazard, which, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing. I want it to be cautious about that sort of stuff. But what it then does is immediately switch you from drive into the regenerative braking, which causes a kind of a little blip. You feel this blip of deceleration. I think that that would actually work a lot better and be at least perceptually more comfortable if, instead of going directly into the regenerative braking, it spent a couple of 100 milliseconds in coasting. Because that's what people do when they run into these situations. They take their foot off the gas, they let the car coast, and then if necessary, they add the brake. So that's a very minor improvement, but I think that it's something to consider. Okay, now here we are, and the car is stopping at a traffic light behind the car in front. Okay, and what's interesting is what happens when we all start moving again. Well, what you'll see is the car in front will start moving, but the Tesla will not move for a couple of seconds. And this is called a hysteresis delay. I would really like to see a tractor beam mode. Here we go. You see that delay? I would really like to see the Tesla have a tractor beam mode where it instantly responds when it's stopped to the car in front moving. And the reason for that is that it's polite to the people behind us. By us moving faster, they can get moving faster, and that improves the flow of traffic. I think that's a feature that both Tesla drivers and non-Tesla drivers would like for this car to have. Okay, now this is the Tesla's Autopark feature. And you're going to have to forgive me. There we go. I'm not going to talk too much while it's actually doing it because I'm paranoid about this thing. Now, I'll give it props. It seems to be really good. Really, really good and precise about like not hitting other cars, which is a good thing. But there is one thing about it that really freaks me out. And that is, in order to get it to work, you've got to drive relatively close to the line of cars. And that's not how people like to drive in parking lots. When you're looking for a parking space, you want to be in sort of the center of the lane between the two rows of parked cars, and then dive in or back into a space when you find one. But the Tesla makes you drive like you're on a city street, really close to the line of parked cars. And I think that's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because all of these gas cars are incredibly envious of Teslas. There's a level of hatred that hasn't been seen since the days of horse-drawn buggies versus Model Ts. And they will do anything to influence their owners to back out when you're going along that row of cars looking for a parking space and smash into your Tesla. And it is for that reason that I am incredibly paranoid about using the parking feature. And I hope that the next revision of the software lets you drive in the center of the lane, you know, as is intended. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this litany of incredibly minute complaints about an incredibly awesome car. Look forward to your comments below, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. Bye all!